Okay, hi everybody. My name is Kirsten, and you are at monthly meal planning or next level meal planning, or I don't even remember some of the other names. I teach with a lot of different community ed districts, and I say, here's my class. And a lot of them are a lot more creative than I am, and they come up with better names. But if it's regarding meal planning and you have the Zoom link because you got it from your community ed person, you are in the right place. So, Um, grab a drink, answer the poll, settle in, and let me tell you how it's going to go. The first thing I need to tell you is that this class is going to be recorded. So if you need to step away for a while, don't worry. I will put up the recording on an unlisted YouTube video, and the person who sent you the Zoom link will send you the link to the YouTube recording so you can access that as much as you want to. The second thing I need to tell you is that if we have any kind of internet problems, I will knock wood, give us about 15 minutes to try and restart, set everything back up again. And if that does not work, then I will give you the link to when we taught this class a year ago. Um, and da, 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 da. There is a handout that accompanied this class. You have the Zoom link, so you're here. But if you didn't get the handout, let us know in the chat and we can drop the handout in the chat for you to access, and or send me a message and I can email that to you after class. Now, when you send me a message directly, you're sending a message to Kirsten, um, because I'm Kirsten. And my spouse, Mark, is over there with my computer, so he's got that. Um, so let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I will kick it over to my co-teacher, Megan, and she will tell you a little bit about herself. And then I'll get started with some meal planning preps and tips. And then Megan will, well, meal prepping tips, some cooking part. And then Megan's going to talk meal planning. And we'll kind of bounce back and forth with some cooking and some, the system part of it. We'll take a break for 3 to 5 minutes about halfway through class, and there will be time at the end for questions in addition to the questions that you are throwing into the chat, because we've got lots of eyeballs on the chat to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. Okay, I have been teaching cooking classes since 2016. I started when we lived in Ohio with canning classes, and I moved on when we moved up here to Minnesota a couple of years later to instant pot classes. I designed the class that I wish I would have had when I got my first pressure cooker. I also work part-time at Chowgirls Catering, making pretty food these days, but I started when it was 100% meals for food insecure folks, with Minnesota Central Kitchen, which is now known as Kitchen Coalition. And then I also teach classes for fun too. So that is all about me. And now I will turn you over to Megan, who will tell you all about her.
Hi, I'm Megan Fyant, and I have been the founder. I am the founder of Lyle's Lunchbox. We've been a charity for 7 years now. So we are named after my father, who passed away from cancer in 2011. And what we do is we feed children who would otherwise go hungry because they are missing their breakfasts and lunches from school over their winter break. And Kirsten has wonderfully hosted this benefit class for us for this year and last year, and has fed so many children because of it. And we are very, very grateful. And we look forward to being able to help a lot of kids. And I look forward to helping you with monthly meal planning, because once you figure out the system, it really takes a lot of pressure off each month. And as Kirsten, I think, would say, it can save you hours of work. So it is well worth the growing pains of learning how to do it. And we hope that you will get a lot out of the class. So back to you, Kirsten.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I learned along with everyone else a year ago when Megan was teaching the system, and I have been doing it for a year. And like I've been saying on my Facebook, when I talk about it, it really reduces the mental load and frees me up to think of other things. So, first thing I'm going to show you today is how to prep ahead grains. I use my pressure cooker for this, and I've got some wild rice here, cultivated wild rice, but still this type of a grain, because I like to have a wide variety of grains when I'm making grain bowls. And I've determined that I can make my appliances work for me a lot easier than I could if I was trying to do all the things. So I've just put a cup of wild rice and a cup of and a half of water into my pressure cooker. And that looks like enough water. All I'm trying to do is cover the wild rice. And it looks covered, so that'll be good for me. And I'm gonna pressure cook this for 20 minutes at high pressure. Near there, and near there, and we're gonna go. Compared to cooking wild rice over on the stovetop, you're still gonna put the rice in the water. Um, but this is all I had to do. I just poured it in, I pushed the button. I'm gonna ignore it until it tells me it's ready to go, and then I'm gonna release the pressure. So I really like letting my appliances do the work for me. I also have a rice cooker because I lived in Japan and Hawaii, and I like a good rice cooker. So I have a rice cooker to cook rice for me as well. But I use wild rice. I use the pressure cooker for farro, wild rice, sometimes quinoa. Sometimes I do quinoa on the stove. Um, Barley. There's some other weird grain. Millet. I also like to use millet in a pressure cooker just because it's an easy way for me to do it. But I'm going to let that sit there. And then the next thing I want to show you for meal prepping is how to prep a butternut squash. I'm a person who really likes cubes of butternut squash. I don't usually use it as a puree. So when I'm buying butternut squash, I generally try to find one that has a really long neck because that's the part I'm going to use the most of. I grew this one all by myself. Thank you very much. So, it doesn't really have much of a neck, but hey, I grew it, so I'm going to enjoy it when I enjoy it. But usually I just cut off the base, and that leaves me with the neck part, and I peel that, and I kind of wanted to show you a little bit. If you could switch to chop cam. I want to show you a little bit of the difference on this. We go up, there we go. When you peel it, if you just get the outer peel off, there's still going to be a little bit of like a light yellow with a green stripe. Take the rest of that off because that'll give you, it's a little more fibrous when you're cooking it. So try and go all the way down to pure orange on there. All right. And then the easiest way for chopping things is just to make your pieces as uniform as possible. So I'm going to cut this in half and then cut it into strips, because if you have uniform pieces, it will cook all at the same size. And I appreciate that. So I get a cube like this. That'll do. Cut those in half. So I'm going to just keep on cubing this, and then I'm going to toss it into a bowl with a little bit of salt and pepper and olive oil. And I'm going to throw it in my air fryer at 375. That reminds me, air fryer cheat sheet. We'll talk about that. I'm going to throw it at 375 until it's done. You could roast this in a 400-degree oven. Usually I'll use a piece of parchment paper just to keep it from sticking, easy cleanup. But on my air fryer, I'm just throwing it on a tray, and I'm going to roast it until it's tender and a little bit of brown on the edges. And I'm going to get started doing that while Megan turns over and starts talking more about the systems, the plans, how you figure it all out.
All right, thank you. So the meal planning patterns we have established are kind of fall into two categories. So the if you have your handout, you'll see that we have them divided into weekly categories and bi-weekly. You can't hear me? All right, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, you can? Okay.
I do.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, as I was saying, so I am not as loud as the main speaker. Sorry, guys. I will try to be louder. Okay. So, as I was saying, we have the meal planning patterns divided. Can you guys hear me okay? Well enough? Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. All right. So, what we want to do is we want to figure out whether you want to plan your meals 1 week at a time or 2 weeks at a time, pretty much using a 1 week pattern or 2 week pattern and then repeating that through the month. So if you give me just a second here, I'm going to share my screen and it's sharing slowly. All right. So you should have, this is the handout that Kirsten sent. So when you're starting monthly meal planning, there are a few things that you're going to ask yourself no matter what plan you use. The first one is, what are the known events on your schedule? So if you've got kids at home, what sports do you have? What band concerts do you have? Who has to be driven where right before dinner? Do you have a dentist appointment after school that's going to impact how easily you can get dinner on the table? If your hours are uneven, if you work some early mornings, some late nights, which nights are you working later? Uh, Things like that are going to you're going to want to take that into account when you're figuring out which meals will work best for you on those days. The second question is, what do you need to use up? One of the great things about meal planning is that it allows you to save money because you can look ahead and say, I have cilantro still, or I have some peppers from fajitas that I want to use up for something else. And it saves a lot of food waste and it also saves you money and saves you time. So it's a win, win, win. The next question is, what do you need more of? So, as you're thinking about it, what are your pantry staples that you always have on hand that you're running low on? Just quickly add those to the grocery list. It makes it easy. The next question is, what season is it and what's on sale? This is a great way to save money, especially if you're trying to eat fresh. Uh, Whatever is in season is usually going to be either on sale or the cheapest that those particular produce items will be throughout the year. And that also holds true like around the holidays. If you want to do a lot of baking, baking items usually tend to be more on sale. If you're thinking about May, you'll usually find a lot of grilling items on sale. So if you want to save money, you can just find the pattern for your area as to what is on sale when, and then plan your meals around those sales. And then lastly, what do you feel like eating? So I recognize that if you have picky eaters or picky significant others or food allergies, it can be more challenging to pick something that works that also sounds good. But just it's okay to experiment. It's okay to try new things. Or if you don't like to try new things, it's okay to keep doing the same things that you know you love. And we have a plan for that too. So now that you've asked yourself those questions, what you would do is you would pick which of the meal patterns works best for you. And we're going to go through a couple of them. We'll talk through them together. Kirsten and I are going to go back and forth a little bit. And then at the end of this class, we will go through and plan one together so you can see how we do it. So it won't all be me talking. But the first two are weekly categories that you just keep repeating throughout the month. So the first one example is to have a consistent type of meal each night and just change what that is each week. So for example, if you did meatless Monday, you could do eggs one Monday, grilled cheese and tomato soup another Monday, baked potatoes with broccoli and cheddar another Monday. Um, Taco Tuesdays could be chicken tacos, shrimp tacos, walleye tacos, beef tacos. And so you don't have to use these exact um, types of food, but you pick what pattern works for you and just always have that category on Wednesday or always have that category on Saturday. It just takes some of the guesswork and some of the mental load off of trying to figure out what you're going to want when, because you already know, hey, I'm looking for 4 meatless meals that sound good to me or that I know my family will eat for this month. Plug them in, you're good to go. Now I need 4 types of tacos. So that's the way that works. And we have some ideas for you just to help you think about uh, what could possibly fit under those categories. Because sometimes it feels like maybe we each have 1 or 2 things that we think of automatically, and then it feels like finding 3 and 4 is really tough. So feel free to get creative though. That's the thing with this, is that it can really help give you more time and space to be creative if you want. The second one, here's another one. Instead of a category of food, like tacos or one pot or pizza, this is repeating the same protein. So you would have meatless Monday again, but Tuesdays would be beef. Anything you want with beef. Wednesdays could be breakfast for dinner. Anything, you could be looking at frittatas, burritos, quiches, baked oatmeal, yogurt and granola, sweet potato waffles, anything like that. But it would just be breakfast for dinner. Saturday would be your poultry night, chicken, turkey, anything at all that uses those as your protein. So again, the idea is every week you would just go through and, okay, I need a beef, I need a pork, or depending on what cookbooks you like, you can do all of your beef at once. Okay, I'm going to go through every Tuesday this month, starting with the beef. I know I need 4 or 5 beef recipes. Fill all of those in. Moving on. I know I need 4 or 5 pork recipes. What sounds good? What do I need to use up? What days do I know that we're going to be out of the house? And so I either want to plan like a crock pot meal or, a 30 minutes on the stovetop kind of meal using fish or using pork. So it's just take some of the work off of figuring out what to cook and when, because it just tells you, okay, Tuesday, I need a beef recipe. So any questions on those 2 so far? Those are just, you repeat the same pattern each week of the month. Anything that we want to talk about before we go on to the biweekly ones? All right, so it looks like we're good there. Okay, so same idea with the biweekly ones, but now instead of planning 1 week at a time and then repeating that block, you're planning 2 weeks at a time and repeating that block. So it gives a little bit more variety. So here is the first variation for that. Busy families. I don't know about you guys, but I have teenagers who are in sports. So there are, if it's spring, I guarantee you this is the one that I'm in, because we are at the baseball field. It feels like every night, honestly. And so a lot of what I do is just try to figure out how we can get calories into our kids and still make it somewhere between school and practice or school and a game on time. So what I like to do, again, that first question that I always ask myself is, what are the things that are going to impact my ability to make dinner and which nights? So you could see here, excuse me, sorry, that in this, we have 3 practices, a game and a birthday the first week. And then the second week, we have 2 practices and 2 games. So I start with those and I pick easy crock pot meals, Instapot meals, which Kirsten has a million delicious recipes for, leftovers, breakfast for dinner, quick and easy things that I know people are going to love, that I know like the back of my hand. It doesn't take me time to think about how to put it together. I've made 1,000 times before, and I just plug those in. And then I look at whatever I have left. So in this case, out of the 2 weeks, I only have 5 nights that we aren't somewhere during dinner. And because I like to try new things, I, pick out a couple of different recipes. And then so my kids don't feel like they're always getting random, sometimes weird new things to try. Pick out a few family favorites that I know are going to go over well. So, and those nights I also choose the new recipes when I know that I'm going to be home to have time, because every recipe always takes me like 3 times longer the first time I make it. So I like to have time and not feel rushed, not be worried about practice or games. So that would be how, if you're a busy family, that would be how that one would work for you. Okay. The second variation here is cooking for one or two. A lot of recipes usually create 4 portions. And I know you can always save them as leftovers, but sometimes people get really tired of eating leftovers. And so, a quick and easy way to not have to eat the same thing for lunch the next day, but also not waste food, is to make the 4 portions and freeze what you don't need. So, say there's 2 of you, you eat dinner for recipe one on one night, you freeze the second 2 portions, and then the second half of the month, you would go back and pull recipe one out of the freezer. And here you go. You've actually fed yourself a homemade meal every night, but you've only cooked half of the month. So this is actually a huge time saver. It's a huge money saver. And it saves a lot of food waste because you don't have to worry about getting sick of it. You can put it back in the freezer. And if you want to, get creative and you want to pull out recipe 12 right away because you loved it so much, totally fine. But again, all you do is just put it into individual portions, freeze it, and then the second half of the month, you already have all of your cooking done and you are good to go. And then Kirsten has a bunch of really good ideas for just how to save a little bit more money, how to protect against some more food waste, uh, going through the salad bar area if you only need a small amount, things like that. So there are some ideas there for you to read if you haven't had a chance yet. And one last one we are going to touch on before I throw this back to Kirsten is picky eaters. So again, if you or your family are a little bit more particular, maybe you have a lot of food allergies and it's just not worth trying to find new things, or you've got kids who just won't, they have their 2 vegetables they'll eat and that's it, or a spouse that wants his favorite things or her favorite things and that's all. This is the one for you. It allows you to not feel bad about making the same things. So you pick your top 14 that you know everybody's going to like, and then you just repeat it twice during the month. And again, it saves you time, it saves you money. You know what you're getting, you know what you're making, you know everybody's going to eat it, so it saves you the fighting. And it gives you permission to not feel bad or not have to feel like you're trying to constantly find new things that people will tolerate. If this is what works best for you, go for it. You're still getting healthy homemade meals and you're still getting 14 different meals uh, twice a month. So there's nothing wrong with sticking with family favorites. You can also stick with family favorites when you have a really busy time. Like if you have a ton of things going on at work, like say for instance, you work in insurance, medical insurance, and you know the enrollment period is coming up, and you know that you are going to have a million late nights. This could be a good one for you. If the busy family one didn't really resonate, this one could be a good one too, because these are going to be all recipes you've made before. They're going to be recipes you know how to make well. And it's just going to save you that mental load of trying to figure out what to do when you're already spending so much mental energy at work. So you don't have to pick one and stick with it always. Just like our lives ebb and flow and the seasons kind of change, feel free to bounce back and forth between these as works best for your family. And we will pause there and send it back to Kirsten.
Okay. Thank you. My producer is on it. He's like, okay, rocking and rolling. I realized that we did not go over the poll. I like to do a poll at the beginning of class just to kind of give me a sense of who all is here in class. So I want to go over the poll results while this stuff is finishing up. So question number one, do you already plan meals? 24% of you plan a week or longer in advance. 18% of you 1 to 3 days in advance. 18% of you kinda as you're staring at the fridge and your tummy is growling. And 41%, no way, it's why I signed up for class. So you came to the right place. I'm telling you, it really helped me. And do you have an air fryer or a pressure cooker? Just to help me figure out what's going on, because the recipes, all the recipes in the handouts give you stovetop instructions. Anything that you're cooking in an air fryer, you can cook in an oven. The key difference in translating a recipe from air fryer to oven is you increase the temperature 25 degrees and increase the time 25% from an air fryer recipe to an oven recipe. If you have an oven recipe and you want to convert that to the air fryer, it's going to cook faster, so decrease the time by 25%, and you don't have to have it cook as hot because of that hot air directly circulating, so decrease the degrees 25%. So it's 25% down and 25 degrees, or 25% of degrees up, depending on which direction you're going. So got that. 47% of you have both an air fryer and a pressure cooker. 13% have an air fryer, 13% have a pressure cooker, 27% it's complicated. And if you want to tell me it's that you have an appliance in your checkout, in your cart ready to check out, and you're just not ready to pull the trigger, I understand. I've been there. Teaching, I taught my Instant Pot Basics class, and I had somebody who had their Instant Pot in the basement in a box the first week, and then the second week it got to the stairs, and then the third week it actually made it into the kitchen, and by the fourth week it was out of the box. And I'm like, yay! You know. Question number 3: is this your first online cooking class? 69% of you, yeah, sure, you betcha. Welcome. Um, and welcome to my neighbor Sally, who's that way. And 31% of you, no, because I recognize some faces. So thank you for coming back to one of my classes. I really appreciate it. And because of you guys, I'm donating my fee to Lyle's Lunchbox, but because of you guys, people are getting fed. And so thank you for signing up for this class. I appreciate it. And last but not least, how would you describe your eating style? 92% of you eat all the things. 8%, we've got the meats. Nobody is vegan before 6th and omnivore. I know it was kind of a specific one, but I threw it in there. 8% proudly plant-based, 8% gluten-free, 8% dairy-free, and nobody is, it's complicated. So thank you for letting us know that info. So I've got a variety of recipes that I'm going to show you, that I'm going to demonstrate and put together today. The first one, because I've got about 5 minutes left on the wild rice. So I'm going to do a grain bowl. You were totally ready though. Stop you. I'm going to do a grain bowl with some roasted vegetables. And the grain I'm going to be using is buckwheat groats. So I'm actually curious, has anyone eaten buckwheat groats before? Because I have not. Can you switch to Chop Cam? I can show you what it looks like in a bag. Because this was all new to me. I like trying new grains. When cooked, they look like little greenish brown kernels. And then when they're cooked, they kind of puff up. It does look like grape nuts. I have to wonder if grape nuts, yeah, maybe grape nuts are buckwheat groats. I don't know. Um, I boiled these on the stove with 2 parts water to 1 part buckwheat groats, put it into the boiling water, covered it with a lid, turned off the heat, and let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes for it to look tender and yeah, grape nutty. Wild. Anyway, I've got some grains. Oh, Rebecca, thank you. So that's kasha because I've seen the cereal kasha, which apparently is buckwheat groats. Now we know. Um, so after last year's class, when I started my actually started in December of 2023 to meal plan. So I have been meal planning for 24. I'm on my 25th month now. And by 24, I mean 13. Yeah, 13, 14. I'm trying to math. I'm really good at recipe math, but not this. I decided, I think I was teaching a Wellness Bowl Wednesday class the following month. So my brain went with, okay, we already have pizzas on Fridays. Let's do Wellness Bowl Wednesday for another theme thing. And I started doing grain bowls. And I would try wild rice and I would try, what am I talking about? Wild rice, regular rice, just any kind of grain that appealed, or I would just use some potatoes or something as a grain. Anything to kind of make things interesting. And I'm gonna do this. So the first grain bowl I want to show you is I've got a little bit of sausage, a little kielbasa, and I sliced it, I tossed it in the air fryer just to get crisp because kielbasa is usually fully cooked. Some strips of red pepper that I tossed with olive oil and roasted at 375, just like the butternut squash. And then I had a little bit of rutabaga left over from pasty making because the producer is a Youper, and for his birthday, we made pasties. So, grain bowl number 1, you can prep ahead the vegetables, roast them, have them ready to go. You can prep and freeze the grains. Can you grab me the grain thing out of the freezer? That tub that wanted to jump? Yes, the tub that wanted to jump. Um, when I'm prepping grains, I will usually cook them and then spread them out in a tray like this. And then I will just rock and roll as many grains as I want to. Last month, I went a little bonkers and did tricolor quinoa and a 5-seed, 5-type wild rice or grain rice, Asian rice blend that has red rice and brown rice and black rice and pearled barley and one other thing that I can't remember. And I've transferred it to a glass jar and I don't have the bag anymore, so I can't even read. But it would all sorts of different rice, cooked that in my rice cooker so that it came out just fine. Quinoa, did the quinoa on the stovetop, threw everything in trays to let it all cool down. And then I combined it together and made some deli containers, quart-sized deli containers, which is enough for our family to have a meal. And then I kind of froze them all with a little grain mix. So I knew, okay, I still have to come up with a vegetable and I have to come up with a protein, but I've got the grain set. And that makes me very happy. All right. Thank you. Um, the wild rice is ready. So I'm going to I'm gonna make one more bowl for you. And then I will hit this while it's releasing the pressure. I'll gather the stuff for one more bowl. Go in one and you. Okay. Do you want a meatless protein for this or happy brain? Yeah. If you want a meatless protein for a bowl. You know, there's tofu. We'll talk about that also. There's tofu. There's tempeh. I also like to use cheese as and beans, of course, but I also like to use cheese as a protein. So I have, let me tip this over. I've grilled some halloumi cheese, and that's what's going to go in our next bowl. And I need this to drain out. So I'm going to grab a little bit of wild rice in my bowl. And then a slab of halloumi cheese for grilling. And then we're going to add to that probably some more red pepper and some roasted butternut squash. So if you want to do a meatless version of a grain bowl, you've got that version too. Little halloumi cheese, roasted red pepper, and these again, prep them ahead. You can prep them ahead by cutting, you can prep them ahead by cooking all the way. Either way, they're set up for when you want to have a grain bowl. You say, okay, here I go. All right. I am gonna hand it back over to Megan and put this away. Yes. Rebecca would like to know more about halloumi cheese. Let me tell you, Rebecca. So can you chop cam for me? Halloumi cheese is a semi-hard brined cheese. It's in the fridge, the freezer, yes. This particular thing I think is from Costco, but also from Greece, from Cyprus, via Wisconsin. You can eat it fresh, you can grill it, you can fry it, which is what I did here. I just turned on a skillet, preheated a skillet, no oil or anything, popped the cheese in till it got browned on one side, flipped it over, let it get browned on the other side. And it's kind of like eating cheese curds. It has that same kind of squeak to it, like a cheese curd. But I have never tried to cook a cheese curd other than eat a fried cheese curd, which is gooey, and this does not get gooey. So you find it in nicer cheese shelves in grocery stores, but what you're looking for is halloumi, Hallloumi. Good question, Linda. Do I ever make any sauce for the grain bowls so they don't dry out? Yes. So I often make a yogurt sauce, and you're getting my leftovers here, just so you know. I'll make a yogurt sauce with some plain yogurt and maybe a little bit of mayonnaise or Dijon or some ranch powder or some Italian seasoning or some curry powder or some chili crisp or some za'atar seasoning, just something to go with the plain yogurt and seasoning and a little mayonnaise. So I'll do yogurt sauce often, and that'll keep for a while. And sometimes I make it, this is a chimichurri, if I want to be vegan. This is a chimichurri. I'll go this way. It's actually from Chow Girls because I bought it a week ago as part of the Chow Girls Thanksgiving. And I still have a little bit. We have a roasted veg platter for Thanksgiving. And I bought the sauce to go with that. Chimichurri is just a whole bunch of herbs thrown in a blender with red wine vinegar and other stuff, because I don't actually make it at Chow Girls. I'm usually doing other things. So it's a fresh herb sauce, but you can find recipes for chimichurri in a lot of places. It's fresh herbs, parsley, cilantro, that kind of thing, with a little bit of olive oil, some salt, some pepper. I think like chili flakes, that kind of thing for a little pop. Those are a couple of good go-to sauces for me. And then, yeah, chili crisp. We are putting chili crisp on all sorts of things. I have done a potato, the base was potatoes, and then I had a random assortment of meats and vegetables that I had on hand, and I used barbecue sauce as the sauce for one delicious thing. Made an aioli with Dijon mustard and mayonnaise for a little bit of a sauce, a dipping sauce. Potatoes. Well, I mean, potato sauce is not that different than yogurt sauce. My potato sauce is generally sour cream or creme fraiche, little garlic, salt, pepper, mayonnaise, mixed up. Great with potatoes. Really good with potatoes. But also, you could do plain yogurt. I've kind of gone into a plain yogurt and ranch powder dressing recently. I don't know why. Um, but yes, there you go. Um, good. Okay, back to you, Megan.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen here. And we are going to go back to our handout and start with the final variation, which is foodies. So foodies, the pattern is really that you try to get a variety of proteins each week. But what day you get those, what type of meal you use for those varies completely on whatever you feel like having. There's also room in there for more takeout meals, more restaurant meals. Um, just it, if you're somebody that really enjoys food and really enjoys trying new things and likes to go out a lot, if that's like where you are in life and you can do that, this might be the one for you. So, uh, like I said, the pattern with this is that you just pick your proteins and you make sure that you cycle through and get a variety of proteins throughout the week, but it does not have to be on the same night. I will say that this is our family favorite. We don't do the restaurants and takeout as often as I would like to, which is probably true for most people, I would say. But I I like this one because it gives me more room, I think, for being creative, but it also in making sure that we get a different protein every night and making sure that I cycle through, vegetarian, beef, fish, chicken, pork, or chicken or turkey. I make different vegetables with each of those proteins, and I feel like it helps me make sure that my kids are getting a good variety of nutrients, and I'm not frequently making the same things. So this happens to be our family favorite. But again, I will say this is the way that I tend to cook in winter when I don't have kids in sports. Springtime, baseball season, I am 100% busy family trying to survive, not eat out every night as we are running from practice to game to practice to game. So don't feel like if you try one, you have to stick with only that one. You can ebb and flow according to what season of life you and your family are in, or you can try a couple of different ones and see what works for you. You can also kind of look at the patterns and make your own. The whole idea is really to find the pattern that works for your brain, that works for your budget, and that works for where your family is at, and consistently just make that consistent so you don't have to uh, keep figuring out which proteins you want to do. And one thing I wanted to touch on, which was a question from last year, was what would you do if you did not eat meat? So for me, sorry, I can't edit this document, but I would go back to either one of these two um, weekly plans, and I would do a dairy one night, I would do mushrooms one night, I would do tofu one night, beans one night, eggs one night, tempeh one night, and then leftovers. But those are just, that's just me. I try to eat meatless a couple of times a week, but I'm sure there are people on here who have a lot more categories that perhaps you guys could throw into the chat if you're willing, to help. Even if you don't eat meatless routinely, anything that we can do meatlessly usually gives us more nutrients and plant-based nutrients, which is always good for our bodies and good for the environment. And it's just nice to know some different things that maybe we wouldn't have thought of. So one other thing that you can do is if you have a variety of cooking styles or cooking appliances that you really like to cycle through, you could even decide to pick one appliance each day and let that be your pattern. So you could do stovetop on Monday and oven on Tuesday and grill it out on Wednesday. Use your Instapot on Thursday and your air fryer on Friday, and throw in a couple of nights of leftovers, and you can determine how you're going to eat and which recipes you're going to do that way. So a couple of different ideas. Again, the whole point of this is to find the pattern that works for you, and then just plug in the recipes that you like and the foods you like into your pattern, and let the pattern do the heavy lifting of the planning for you. So before we roll to break, real quickly, if you guys wouldn't mind, or as we're going through break, just kind of throw into the chat which one of these sounds like it might be where you would start planning, or what it seems like it might work for you and your family. Just out of curiosity, kind of where you're at. And then when we come back from break, I know Kirsten has some more delicious foods to show us and make us all hungry right before dinner. And then we will talk through together, we'll build out one month just to see how quickly it can go when you've got a pattern already in place. And then I'll show you how I use patterns to plan breakfast, lunch, and dinner for myself for a month to make it really quick and easy. So that is all I have for now. And Kirsten, it's back to you.
Okay. So I've got one more recipe that I was just kind of throwing together while you were talking, with the extra butternut squash and the extra kielbasa. This is something we do in the fall and the winter at Chow Girls. It's called squassage, and I have it on a little display here. Last month, I taught a whole boards class and we got really creative, but this is just, you take a biased sliced sausage, kielbasa, summer sausage, any kind of a fully cooked sausage, slice it on the bias, and then skewer it with your roasted butternut squash that I tossed with oil and a little salt and pepper and roasted. And this makes just this hearty appetizer that is handheld, one bite. If you really wanted to plus this up, you could go ahead and make a maple sage butter, where you melt some butter and you stir in some maple syrup and fry up some sage, chop it up, and have that you're swirling these around in. If you really want to get fancy, but as a whole, it's a nice, quick, easy appetizer and a lot of fun to make and say squassage. We like it. So got that as an extra thing you can do with your roasted butternut squash and some sausage. Okay, so we're going to take a break. I'm going to set up for air fryer walleye tacos, wraps, sandwiches, whatever. And once I've got the kitchen all set up, the producer will be showing the screen and playing the music. So if you're hearing the music, you're not going to miss anything. And then when we get back, we'll get started showing you how to get air fryer walleye going on. And then Megan will finish with moving on to breakfast, lunch, dinners, the whole things. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right. And the dogs have just relocated themselves, so I apologize for any dog noise. So the next thing I'm going to demonstrate for you is some air fryer walleye tacos. And this same technique, the same breading technique you can use for slabs of tofu, for chicken thighs, chicken breasts, pork tenderloin, turkey tenderloin, any firm fleshed, white fleshed fish, catfish, cod, tilapia, swai, pollock, halibut. There's a lot of different things that you could do this technique for. So if you have this as a nightly thing, you can be thinking of, oh, hey, you know, I could just do this way. If you're being vegan, my favorite way to do tofu, I mean, you could do this with tofu, but my favorite way to do tofu is actually to toss with a little cornstarch and a little bit of olive oil, not toss with panko. So I generally personally don't do tofu this way. But I've got two bowls here, one bowl that has some walleye cut in strips and one bowl that has some panko breadcrumbs. There's gluten-free panko out in the grocery store, but panko breadcrumbs. You could use regular breadcrumbs if you want to. I like the crispiness of panko breadcrumbs. And then a little bit of seasoning. And today I'm going to be using Ruth Ann's Muskego Avenue chicken and fish seasoning because I'm not going in a taco direction today with these walleyes. It'll be like a wrap sandwich or something. And then I've also put a piece of parchment on my air fryer tray. And I like to use a lot of parchment, apparently so much that I didn't realize I had emptied my box. Not to worry, I have more in the basement. So yay. But if you're using parchment, I tear off some off the roll and I crumple it up, and that makes it lay out flat. Just a tip. I make a lot of pizza on Friday nights because Pizza Friday, like I said, and parchment is the thing that just saves me on that. So now that I have whatever I'm breading in a bowl and a bowl for breading and my parchment set up, I'm going to put on my gloves. Actually, I'm going to throw some of the mayonnaise and more seasoning in. So I've got a tablespoon or two of mayonnaise. This is just going to help the seasoning to stick to the fish that I'm coating. And a little bit of seasoning, a little more seasoning, some in there, some in here. Then I'm going to put on some gloves. You can, of course, do this without gloves, but I used to be a nurse and I work in food, so I'm very used to using a lot of gloves for cooking. And I'm going to have a wet hand and a dry hand to do this breading. I'm right-handed, so I want to go this way so that my dominant hand is putting the final touches, getting the final amount of panko on and moving it onto the air fryer tray. So that preheated to 375. I'm going to take my wet hand and mix the mayonnaise and the seasoning and the walleye until it's all coated and ready for sticking. And then the wet hand picks up a piece of fish, moves it into the panko bowl. The dry hand covers it with panko, make sure it's all nice and coated, and moves it onto the tray. Wet hand picks up a piece of fish, puts it in there. Dry hand sprinkles on the seasoning. Okay. So I'm going to keep on doing this and then throw these in the air fryer while Megan has us do the actual work of making a meal plan.
All right. So thank you all for your responses. It looks like we had most people, the majority of people did the cooking for one or two, which is awesome. And that's one of the things that makes this fun every year, because every year it's different as to what people want or don't want. So what I would like us to do, if you can see, okay, I know this chat is a little bit in the way. What's the best we're going to do for right now? So what I would like to do is we're going to do two practices. So we're going to do the first one is going to be the cooking for 1 or 2, like it's shown in the handout, where you would make 14 recipes, any protein, any pattern you want, just pick any 14. And then you would just freeze the second half and eat that for the second half of the month. So if you guys wouldn't mind, you can either pop it in the chat or just out loud give me some recipes that you would like to see or that you would make for your family, and we'll just go right through and do 14 recipes, and then we'll have actually planned a whole month. So what would you guys put? Any ideas? Lentil soup. Ooh, that sounds good. Oh, there we go. Now I have to try to keep up. All right, so lentil soup, spaghetti and meatballs, pasta and shrimp bowl, lasagna I saw, and we're gonna skip, let's see, chili crisp tofu I think I saw. Okay, what did I miss? That was in the chat. Okay, good, good. Meatloaf. Okay, what else? Anything that you guys like. It could be brand new, it could be something your family loves, it could be your go-to after a long day. Quinoa bowls, steak and potatoes, tacos, Mediterranean stew. That sounds delicious. All right. Black bean bowls, sliders, rice and bean and pollo. Ooh, that sounds good. Guisado. And because I have baked fish, perfect. 14 meals because I have day 5 covered up. So what did that take us? Like 35, 40 seconds? And you have 14 meals planned. So all you would do is make these the normal portion and then freeze half of it. Or if there's one of you and it makes 4, then freeze the other 3 into individual serving containers. And the second half of the month, you just pull this out of the freezer and you've got great variety. You've prevented food waste and you've saved yourself a ton of money and time. So before we go on to the next one, what kind of serving containers do you recommend? So I love, I don't know if you guys go to Costco at all, but I know you can get them on Amazon too. I love glass containers with airtight locking lids. The glass containers can go, they're good in the freezer, in the microwave, and in the fridge. And the airtight really makes a difference. So obviously I wouldn't take them straight from the freezer to a hot oven, but you can pull them out, let them thaw, and they stack really neatly together. The glass containers are dishwasher safe, which is huge for me because I despise dishes. And that is what I would use. That's a lot of what I use. Oh, good questions. Oh, and Kirsten is on it. So Kirsten, a couple of questions for you since you are the food guru here. How do you freeze and defrost grains or rice so it isn't dried out?
Good question. I use a lot of deli containers to freeze things right here. I tend not to freeze in glass. I tend to just refrigerate in glass, but I tend to use deli containers. I pack them full, and I think if I'm packing them full, then there's not really an opportunity for ice crystals to form around them, and because they're sealed from freezer burn, they tend to not dry out like that because freezer burn really is just drying things out. And I also, I'm doing a batch of grains, but it's going to be enough for about a month's worth of meals. So they don't sit in the freezer for too long. So that seems to work the best for me. And then when I reheat them, I'm either zapping them in the microwave and there's enough steam generated with the frozen stuff. Or I'm going to put them in a pan and cover them with foil and bake them slowly in the oven. And that also helps, I think, generate steam. And so I haven't had a problem with my grains drying out. Maybe because they don't perhaps get overcooked. I would say freezing fresh vegetables and lettuce for tacos, I would not do that. I will save the taco meat in little containers for us, really. Put their dogs down. Like when I make a batch of taco meat, I'll save about a cup's worth of it in a deli container, stick it in the freezer, label it so I know what it is. And then I've got enough for, a taco or for nachos, something like that. And then I'll get fresh vegetables to go alongside. If it's just one or just the two of us, I'll probably hit the salad bar just to get the amount of fresh veggies that I want to have with that thing, the protein that I've taken out of the freezer. And I make use of, we now have full 3 dogs in the kitchen. Okay. I make use of salad bags a lot because generally if I wash the dates, it'll be good enough for a couple of meals before I get bored of the salad or before it goes bad. I will know, okay, this is chopped. I've gotten into these mainly because they use a lot of kale and cabbage, and that chopped lasts a lot longer than plain lettuce. Lettuce, unless I'm growing it or here's the thing. I get my produce from Brightside Produce, which is a St. Paul based food justice organization, and their goal is to get fresh produce into underserved convenience stores and underserved populations that don't have a full-size grocery store handy. And so I don't know what I'm going to get from them. They send me a bag and I get what I get. So my fresh vegetable component is always up in the air, and it's mostly seasonal. Because I used to eat from the CSA for such a long time. So this time of year, always cabbages, cooking greens, kale, turnip greens, mustard greens, that kind of thing that I can't freeze as themselves, but I can certainly cook them and freeze them. They'll thaw just fine. So those type of greens I will do. Thank you, my dear. And all right. And one more thing on serving containers. I like these glass things that Megan was talking about. They have a snap lid, and I put this part in the microwave or the dishwasher or the oven, but not under the broiler and not on the stovetop, says the picture. And they come in anything from 1 cup to, I think, 6 to 8 cups. Yes? Are we good? Okay. Okay. And you unmute her? Thank you.
Sorry about that. How's that? All right. So while Kirsten finishes setting up for that, let's go back to our meal planning that we had started. So a lot of you said that you prefer to eat either vegetarian or meatless. So if you have other themes or categories, please feel free to drop them in the chat. These are the ones that I could come up with, but again, I don't typically eat meatless all the time. And so I am certain that there are a lot of things that out there that are fantastic that I am unfortunately missing. With that said, let's go ahead and do the same thing here. And so but the way this would work is we're going to do 2 dairy first, and 2 mushroom, and then 2 tofu. And we'll go through by the theme or by that protein as it is. So what dairy-based 2 meals would you guys do for these 2 meals? All right, I will do, ooh, Finnish oven pancake. Okay. And quiche, perfect. Mac and cheese, always a favorite. All right, what about something that is mushroom-based? I personally like stuffed portobello mushrooms. Ooh, moussaka. I feel like mushroom pasta. I feel like we should be sharing these recipes too. Okay, what about tofu? We need 2 tofu recipes. What would you guys make? Tofu manicotti, that sounds good. And I can't type, but thankfully this is a meal planning class and not how to type. So, chili crisp tofu. I really want to try this now. How about bean-based? What would you guys use? Black bean chili, always good. I would go with, oh, navy bean soup. Perfect. I was going to say, I would go with like black bean quesadillas, but it's nice to have something besides black beans in there. So navy bean soup. How about eggs? I know we said quiche before, but frittata. Awesome. One more. Oh, yes. What is it? I know what exactly you're talking about too. Eggs baked in tomato sauce. Kirsten, do you remember what I can't think of it off the top of my head. Shashuka, thank you, yes. All right, perfect. Yes, that's delicious. And then leftovers. I like to do leftovers on Friday nights a lot because honestly, by the end of the week, who really wants to cook? Or you can look at it as you have all the time in the world to deal with the dishes the next day. So it's up to you. So for our last protein, I had tempeh. I don't know if someone else who's more experienced with meatless eating has another option that they would offer, or if not, let's find a tempeh recipe that we would use. Or I guess you could do seitan. Okay, I was gonna say, or seitan. I've had, oh, there you go, tempeh, brown rice, and vegetable. So the difference in the way that these work is pretty much the first one, that first 2-week block, you're doing 14 straight different meals and you're just picking whatever sounds good. For these that have a set pattern to the days, you would go through and it's easiest, I think, to do each protein and then go on to the next protein because kind of once, I mean, you saw how it was in the chat, once we all had beans on the mind, then all of a sudden we had lots of bean options. Once we had mushrooms on the mind, we had lots of mushroom options, things like that. So that is the way that these are meant to be used. However, whatever works for you is great. So any questions on that for now? Before we go on and I show you just kind of how I use this in my own life with breakfast and lunch included. Okay. So if you have any questions or something pops up, let me know. Otherwise, here is how I do it. So you can see that I like to repeat my breakfasts and lunches. I like to have a lot of creativity with dinner. As I mentioned before, we tend to do the foodie right now during the winter. And so I'm so that I am not trying to think of multiple different meals to make every day. I tend to do one or two breakfasts and repeat that throughout the week and then switch. One or two leftovers and lunch options throughout the week and then switch and just keep going that way. What you'll see here is these numbers that are a little bit bolder. Those are the days that we have other things going on. And so I know that those are the nights that whatever I make, it needs to be a leftover. It's going to need to be dinner out, something that is super quick and easy, like a crock pot meal that is ready when I get home. So that is always where I start, because that way I know that I am setting myself up for success. And honestly, being realistic about how much time I have on those days. The second thing you might notice is that I repeat a couple of breakfasts all the time. And I just want to put this out there because I want to show you that you can have a wide variety of foods that you eat, a wide variety of nutrients, and still have a few things that you eat repeatedly if it takes a lot of the pressure off of you. So for me, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday are my early days at work. I get up super early in the morning. I have a long morning before I have time for lunch. And I have found that eating avocado toast with eggs gives me the fats and the protein that I need in order to make it through to lunch without being hungry. And so I know and because I'm also getting up so early in the morning, I don't want to think about what I'm making for breakfast. I don't want to have to get up extra early to make a big breakfast. So those mornings that I go to work early, I always have that. It's quick, it's simple. I could practically make it in my sleep, which some days I pretty much have. But I just want to put it out there to show that it's okay to repeat things if it makes your life easier, and you can still get a ton of variety elsewhere in your meals. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every meal every day. And then same thing with lunches. I tend to do leftovers a lot, or like Kirsten was talking about the pre-made salad mixes. I'll do those and throw in like some rotisserie chicken or something, some chicken that we had left over from dinner one night. I do keep track of, like if we had seafood for dinner, I'm not going to take that into work because nobody wants anybody cooking fish in the microwave at work. That's not a good way to make your coworkers like you. So I will make sure that I pick up some extra salad or something like that. But that is how I use this. I've been doing this for, oh man, probably 5 or 6 years now. And it's super simple and it only gets easier with time. And I have found that it really helps. One other thing that I will offer is that one of these meals, one of these dinners, I will make a pantry meal or a freezer meal. So those are ingredients that I will always have in my pantry, or can be frozen or are frozen, so that if things happen, we have more leftovers than planned. If we have more leftovers than planned, or if life has just kind of gone crazy and we are going, we don't know what's going on with life, then we don't have to worry that the food is going to go bad. So that's stuff that I can save for next time. It's kind of my backup. All right. And Kirsten, excuse me, hang on one second. My apologies. Kirsten looks like she's ready for us. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat and we'll answer them afterwards. But back to you.
Okay, thank you. I have to do the poll before I do anything else. I have housekeeping things piled up that I have to do before anything else. So on the break poll, which meal planning pattern do you think you'll use the most? 38% of you said weekly categories. 38% of you said bi-weekly categories. 13% of you busy families. 50% cooking for one or two, and 6% foodies. And do you know what Lyle's lunchbox is and does? 20% of you, yeah, sure, you betcha, because you were paying attention. 80% of you, no way. So Megan, I think you need to, tell us more. How did you hear about this class? 100% of you through community ed. High fives, high fives, high fives. I love teaching through community ed because I'm not a marketing person, so that they tell you, yay. And do you know where to find my upcoming classes? 15% of you, yeah, sure, you betcha. 85% of you, no way. And so I will tell you about my upcoming classes in a minute. Before I have to talk about these other things. I have a couple of cheat sheets, and if you give me your email, I will give you any or all of the cheat sheets that you're interested in. In return for your email, know that I aspire to send out a newsletter. I aspire to send out a monthly newsletter. I actually also aspire to send out a quarterly newsletter. I'm not even that. It's so not a weekly newsletter, but here's what's going on. Here's a recipe, that kind of thing. If you give me your email, I will put you on my newsletter list. Of course, when I send out the newsletter, there's going to be an unsubscribe button. If you don't want to get it in, fine, just unsubscribe. But one of the cheat sheets that I have is an air fry vegetable cheat sheet, how to air fry any vegetable. It's from a cookbook called Air Fry Every Day by Ben Mim. And, he did all the work, and I don't really think I could make it any better. So it's exactly straight out of his. Happy to send this to you so you have it. It goes from asparagus down to zucchini, tells you how to prep the veg and a range of times for cooking that veg. Boom. I have an Instant Pot button cheat sheet. If you have ever wondered, what does the bean chili button do? What does the soup button do? I had a student who asked me, and so I did a bunch of research and came up with all of the things. This is specific to the Instant Pot brand of pressure cooker, although it translates. For example, in any pressure cooker, a steam button is going to go shoot up as high as quick as possible to get up to high pressure, whereas a soup button is going to be more gradual to get up to high pressure, just because you want your soup to be clearer. So there's two buttons of the many buttons, but I have buttons on my microwave that I never use. So, but I have this Instant Pot button cheat sheet if you're interested. And then, because we've talked a lot about leftovers, some people are loving leftovers, some people don't love leftovers. This is a what to do with leftovers cheat sheet. And I got a lot of the material from that cookbook, Love Your Leftovers, on page 12 in the handout. This guy, Nick Evans, he is really brilliant. He had ideas for leftover salmon, which I was thinking, my gosh, besides chopping it up and turning it into salmon cakes, what could you do? He had a bunch of ideas. So I have, if you have leftover cooked vegetables, here are some options: raw vegetables, cooked fruit, raw food, grains, beans, on down to bread, what you could do with leftover bread: a panade in the summertime, a panade in the wintertime, a panzanella in the summertime, French bread, bread pudding, that kind of thing. A lot of ideas. So I've got a leftovers cheat sheet for you. There's that. And when we were talking about freezer meals, I have freezer meals as one of my, sometimes I use it if I'm trying to clean out the freezer. I will say, okay, make a freezer meal. But other times, if I've planned something and I worked a long day and I just don't feel like it, then I'm just like, oh, okay, no, it's a freezer meal. And for our family, that means getting a frozen main, like some dumplings or some chicken nuggets or air fryer fish or fish sticks that cook in the air fryer, which I heard about from one of my students last year and tried. That's a good one. Or something that I have frozen in individual portions, a protein that I've frozen in individual portions so that I really don't have to cook it. I just have to kind of thaw it and toss it in. But that will make a pot of rice, and boom, we go very easily with freezer meals. Usually it's in an Asian direction with dumplings, but that's my good to go freezer meal. Okay, I've covered all that stuff. Yes, all the things I wanted to cover. All right, time for recipe. So while we were filling out the page, I was finishing cooking the air fryer walleye. I'm going to pop you over here, and I'm going to pop you over there, bring you over. And I chose to cut the walleye in strips. There's not a dog here. There's just a towel, a blanket. Okay, now I'm seeing dogs where they're not even existing. So I made the walleye into strips because I'm going to make kind of a wrap sandwich instead of a taco. If you had chunks, you could make a taco. If you had strips, you could make a wrap. And I've warmed a tortilla. And I'm going to put a couple of strips with a fork. Strips of walleye in here. And then I've got a salad kit. And I just tossed a little bit of the veg with a little bit of the poppy seed dressing. So this is a red and green cabbage and a little bit of kale and some broccoli stems, which means it keeps for a while. It doesn't go bad quickly. It's got that. And then I like to add pickled vegetables to a lot of sandwiches. And if you find yourself with, half a bulb of fennel or half some peppers, some jalapenos, or some sweet peppers, if you've got extra carrots, if you've got half a red onion that you used for a recipe, you can pickle that and preserve it for longer. So I do that whenever I need a little bit of red onion for something. I save the rest, slice it up, and I pickle it. And I have a recipe for quick pickled, I think I have quick pickled grapes and carrots. But the idea is the same on pickling a red onion. But that makes, a really nice wrap. And I've overfilled my wrap. So know that it's a standard thing I do. I overfill a wrap. But hey, it's a wrap sandwich. You just wrap it up, roll it over, and say, one. I could skewer it. Now there's a dog underneath me. Yeah, we'll skewer this. Version number 1. Boom. Also, with this same salad mix and some strips of walleye, you can make a salad. Take the rest of the salad, toss it with the stuff that comes with it. In this case, there was some crunchies and some sweets. There's a little bit of pepitas, roasted pepitas, and cranberries. I've got dried cranberries, dried blueberries, dried apricots, kind of on standby to add to any salads that we have. And then sunflower seeds, roasted sunflower seeds, and roasted pepitas and hemp hearts, all for additional crunchies on top of my salad. So those are long storing things that we do to bump up a salad. But add some of this, add some avocado slices. I'm going to add some fresh diced peppers, sweet peppers, red and green for that. A little bit of color on there. And there was one more thing I was going to make with this. Tacos, wraps, salads. Oh, green bowl. Green bowl with walleye. And I'll do a blend of kasha. Now I don't have to say buckwheat groats anymore. I can just say kasha. And wild rice. I think I got my desire to have a whole bunch of grains in a grain bowl from Chow Girls, because we'll have like a trust us bowl where pretty much it's not on the catering menu as we will use this specific grain and vegetable combo. It's a seasonal thing. So right now we're roasting sweet potatoes and beets and rutabaga and carrots and red peppers. And our greens are kale or chard or mustard greens that are generally cooked, wilted a little bit, added on there. And then the proteins will be typically tofu or chicken or salmon or beef. And then the sauce can be kind of, a balsamic vinaigrette or whatever. We'll do the choosing. And in the summertime, it'll be more fresh vegetables and fewer roasted vegetables within a coordinating sauce. So always though, it's either a straight up grain blend, like kasha. I'm so happy I know that it's kasha now. Thank you so much for that. So a little bit of grains, and then we're going to go with the roasted butternut squash, and I'm going to do roasted red pepper and roasted rutabaga, and then some fish on that, and that would be good with a little yogurt for saucy moistureness, as well as a little parsley. Yogurt. And I brought my parsley in before the frost, so I actually have fresh parsley for that. Okay, so take this protein and put it in a small corn tortilla as a taco, put it in a grain bowl, put it in a wrap, put it in a salad. That's if you say, okay, we're having air fryer walleye or pork or chicken or other kind of fish or tofu. That's, 4 different ways that you can do that one protein if you like, just to give yourself variety. Thank you, Mary. This is our dinner tonight, so I hope it's delicious. Anyway, yeah, I think I have covered it. I think that is all the recipes I'm going to share. Okay, good. So also in the chat, did you drop the calendar? Yeah, threw in. Yeah, I know. I will talk about ours and theirs. Yeah. Can you chop Cam? I am not as fancy of a plan. What I end up doing is, we'll go over there. What I end up doing is I design it on my computer as a file on my computer, but then each week I sit and write it all down. And I can move things around here, there, everywhere to get it to work how I want. Thank you. And one thing that I do, I don't use as many cookbooks. I have a lot more recipe emails that I'll get an email with the recipe in it and say, oh, that looks good. Like chili crisp tofu, which, by the way, is chili crisp and yum yum sauce and a little soy sauce. And it's just amazing. It's good with roasted vegetables, chili crisp and fresh tomatoes sliced together. That's delicious. But if I'm getting an email, I'll save my emails in a folder called recipes on my email inbox. But when I'm writing down on the calendar where it goes, I'll write down, it was from the November 15th Eat Voraciously email. So I know where I can go find that. And I'll just plop that down on the calendar when I see it. I say, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I just throw it in the month ahead so that when I go to actually work on that month, there's already some ideas of things. So I don't forget where I saw it. So that's a good thing for me. I also will screenshot if I see it on my phone on Instagram or something. I will screenshot and make a note of it in a recipes file, and then I will say, oh yeah, put it on put it on the template and say, this thing that I saw, it's in your notes app, is a good way for me to find out where things are. Okay. Sally will talk. Yes, we'll just meet out front and have food. We could do that. All right. My part's done for right now.
All right. Thank you. So thank you guys for the questions. Let me touch on a few quickly. And let's start with just what template am I using? This is a Word basic template. I know Kirsten put one in the chat as well, but this is just, you open up Word, you type in blank calendar, and this is what it comes up with. So there aren't any holidays or anything that I have to worry about erasing on there. So that's what I was using for this class. I personally actually use a dry erase board because I really like to write it out as well. But then I have a dry erase calendar that I can move things around if I want to. But I really like the feel of pen and paper or marker and dry erase. So that's the way that I do it at home. It's just harder for me to show you that in the class. So this is one way if you prefer the text style, if you like to write it out by hand, multiple options, just find what works for you. Let's see. Olivia had asked if anybody had any luck doing have 50% fresh and 50% defrosted. So yes, what I would say is I would do the 50% fresh the days right after you come home from the grocery store. And then I would do the 50% defrosted the other half of the week. You can either do that as meals that you had made in advance before, or you could do that as meals that you bought, like Kirsten was saying, like, the dumplings, or you could do chicken tenders with stir-fry vegetables and freezer cauliflower or freezer riced cauliflower, and then some teriyaki sauce that you have in the fridge. And that way you have everything frozen. You don't have to worry about it going bad, but you still have options. So that is what I would do if you're trying to do half fresh and then half frozen. One other idea, because so many of you liked the cooking for one or two, if you're looking for ways to get a variety in, one thing that I would do is pick a cookbook and use that cookbook for a month. I know Kirsten and I love cookbooks. We talk cookbooks a lot. And you can go to your library, which is something Kirsten taught me, and get cookbooks and try them out and see what recipes you like, you don't like. But I would just use one cookbook exclusively, or at most two, for a 2-week period, and then, use up your leftovers, and then the next month pick a different cookbook. And that way you can find lots of different options, lots of try new things, and have some fun with it while still following the pattern that makes it easiest for you. So I think we got all of the questions before I talk about Lyle's lunchbox here. Just double checking. And so the last thing that I was going to do is just tell you a little bit about what we do, where your money is going. So I am the founder and president of Lyle's Lunchbox. And what we do is we feed hungry kids over their winter break. So all of the children that we help are on free and reduced breakfast and lunch from their school. We work in Mauston, Wisconsin, which is a small town of about 4,200. If you are anywhere in the Midwest, you probably have heard of Wisconsin Dells. Mauston is generally the gas station stop before you get to the Dells if you're coming from the north. I think that's the way that most people from Minnesota know it. It's about 20 minutes from Wisconsin Dells. And there aren't a lot of industry or job opportunities there. So I chose it because that's where I grew up. When I was growing up, the two most prevalent job opportunities were either in healthcare or teaching. They have since added a prison, so there are opportunities if you did not go to college. or if that wasn't something that was available for you. But when we started, we had 300 students that needed our help. In a town of 4,200, that's obviously a large portion. It has fluctuated back and forth with COVID and just as the town has changed. This year we have 150 students, which is double what we were having during COVID because Wisconsin had increased the food stamps that it was giving. And so what would happen is without Lyle's Lunchbox, these students would have to try to make do with whatever is left in their pantry and their cupboards. And if you can imagine, food stamps are given out on the first of the month. So if you got all of your allotted money on the first of the month and then you try to stretch it, it's hard to do. And studies have shown that even with budgeting tips and teaching budgeting, most people can only make it until the 25th of the month, which when you're talking about winter break is Christmas. So the majority of people in Boston celebrate Christmas. And so they're looking at trying to buy Christmas gifts. They're looking at trying to get a nicer meal for Christmas or Christmas Eve. And so their budget is already really tight. And our students would not have breakfast and lunch. And we also provide snacks and drinks for our kids to make sure that they have the food that they need when they are not in school. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is we try to do that as healthy as possible. You'll see we have apples. This is our logo over here. Every year, except this year, and I'll explain why not this year, we have given fresh fruit. We are willing to spend the extra money to make sure that our kids are getting healthy food. So here you can see this was last year's bag of apples and oranges that everybody got. And if you go to our website, there we go. We've got some pictures from some of the people that we've helped, some of our volunteers. These are bags that are ready to go and just waiting. This is, I think, the first class that Kirsten and I taught together. And there she is right there, lovely smile. Here's our board. But you can see that this is where we began with boxes. And then our parents told us that's way too difficult to try to fit boxes in the car. Please go to bags. And so we switched to bags. But what we do is we replace the breakfast, lunch, snacks, and drinks that a student would be getting at school and add some extra as well to make sure that they have enough. And then each child gets their own bag. So if you have 5 kids, you get 5 bags. One thing we've done recently is we added a teenager bag because I have 2 teenagers. In fact, most of our board members have teenagers. And if you have ever had teenagers or remember your teen years, they eat a lot. And so we have given them extra to try to make sure that they have what they need to grow and stay healthy and not go hungry just because school is out. And so this year, like I said, it's a little different. We had a very significant challenge with getting our supplies that we would normally get for food. And so what we ended up doing is working with the local Quick Trip that has a grocery section for prepared and fresh meats and produce. And every one of our children is going to get special gift certificates that they can use to pick out their own breakfasts and lunches. And those gift certificates cannot be used on alcohol, cigarettes, junk food, soda, gasoline, anything like that. But it allows us to make sure that they have access to food without having to worry, because we normally start purchasing in June, and by October, we still could not get what we needed because the need is so great right now. And there are so many people so many food organizations trying to purchase from the same company or Second Harvest. So that is what we are doing. We just did a quick pivot to make sure that the most important thing happens, which is that kids get fed and they get to choose what they want to eat this year. So we're excited to see what they think about that. And that is where all of your money's going. We are completely volunteer run. We have almost no overhead. And so your money goes to feeding hungry children. And thanks to Kirsten, I can't do public math, but I think in the years that we've worked together, I think you've fed 70 children, I want to say, if not more. So yeah, so you got every penny, every person in here, you are really making a difference to kids. And we have so many kids that rely on us that we actually have teenagers calling in September saying, hey, can I sign myself up? Because I know that I'm going to get help this year. I know that I'm not going to go hungry this year. So thank you all so very much for that. And thank you, Sally. And back to you, Kirsten.
Okay, just to clarify, we're not hitting you up for money. The money that you paid to register for this class is what Megan is talking about. Yes,
Yes,
my
thank
portion.
you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
my
Yes.
portion of the money that you paid. I mean, the community ed did keep a portion so that they can keep their lights on and the heat on and pay their people. But yes, we're not asking for any more money you've already paid. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, if you have any more questions, throw them in the chat. And I'm just going to tell you what I have coming up for next year. I've got a breakfast meal prep class the last Tuesday in January, which I think is the 28th. Tuesday night is going to be my thing in the winter and spring. So I have a breakfast meal prep class, 6:30 to 8 p.m. the last Tuesday of January. A week later, I've got an Instant Pot Sweets for Your Sweetheart class about making desserts in your pressure cooker. The end of February, I have a air fryer seafood meals class. In the beginning of March, I've got a fast family meals class. And then I am repeating, and those are all new classes. And then the end of middle of middle of April, my final class of the spring will be air fryer vegetables, making a variety of different veggies in the air fryer to get you set up for summertime. Because I use my air fryer year round. I also use my pressure cooker year round, mainly because I am making Instant Pot chai a lot. But you know that gets happening year round. But I do use the air fryer year round because it keeps the kitchen cool, and I like that. Although the kitchen will be a different kitchen next fall when I start teaching again. But those are my classes that are coming up. Send me an email. Oh, and my email is at the bottom of your handout. Cheep, cheep, cheep. My email is at the bottom of your handout. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I can help you with that. And you're going to get a survey from your community ed. Please fill it out. You know, we always want to know what additional classes, what types of classes. I can tell you that based on some surveys that I got earlier, I'm going to be doing a cook along with me boards class. Do you have that picture of boards, or did you already put in there? At Chow Girls Catering, I make pretty food, and I taught a boards class last month, and I decided that I'm going to do a kind of an interactive boards class where we're going to make a board together. I'll tell you what you need to have. You can make some pickled vegetables and stuff with me. And then if you want to assemble it on a board, you know, we'll all do that together, and I'll be giving you tips and tricks for garnishing and making it pretty. That's going to happen next, probably November. I have to pitch the classes soon. Another thing, while I'm thinking about it, if you are looking for a local to the Twin Cities area Christmas gift, can you grab the board off the table? The folks at Chow Girls have boards which is, you can see over there. These are boards from Wood from the Hood, which takes trees that have come down in Minneapolis, Coon Rapids, kind of all around, and they'll tell you the zip code of your tree. There's a lot of ash trees because of the emerald ash borer, but I turned them into charcuterie boards, and Robert Barker is now ready to let us know that he's here. This is a live class. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift, I very much recommend Wood from the Hood if you want a local charcuterie board interesting thing. Okay, thank you. All right, otherwise, this class has been recorded, and I'm gonna put the recording up on YouTube, and then probably Monday, because most of my CE contacts don't work on the weekends. I appreciate that. I'll be working tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. though. Woohoo! But they will send you out the link to the recording. So you have that back to refer to. I've got a couple of bonus recipe videos that will also come in that email, or can come if you have put them in the chat, you put them in the chat. Otherwise, okay, good. All right. So I think we're set if you want to stop recording. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So if you have any more questions, ask us questions. I'm going to go let Robert outside because Robert is apparently very ready to go outside right now. Yes? Okay. Chime in. Hey, let's go. Here you go. Here you are.